Alright, once I've put all the tools, the scrapers, the burnishers, the files, the gloves, chipboard pieces all back in their drawers in the green cupboard, I just want to turn around almost 180 degrees, and there's a sink right over here. And that's where I'm going to deoxidize and degrease my plates. Here you can see a couple copper plates that need to be deoxidized and degreased, and you can also see the vinegar in a spray bottle and a little shaker of salt and the bonami there in the corner of that sink. And that's generally where they'll be stored during class time. So there's a little close-up view of them right there. You can see that the spray bottle says that it has salt and vinegar. So the salt speeds up the chemical process of the vinegar when it interacts with the copper. So you can use straight vinegar, and in a matter of time it will do the job, but salt just speeds it up. So it's like when you put a penny in a glass of vinegar and all the tarnish and oxidation comes off and the penny comes out looking brand new. That's essentially what we're doing to the copper plates, and the salt just, like I said, kind of expedites the process. The bonami is a nice degreaser in that it doesn't have any like bleach or acidic components. It's made from diatomaceous earth, and it's a lot like Barkeeper's Friend, which will also work for this process. So it's a real light scouring solution that will rub the grease off the copper plate, but it won't scratch it like the crystals and say like a more caustic Ajax or other sort of bleach-oriented scrubbing compound. If the salt and vinegar containers are ever empty, you just need to look up into the cupboard right there to the right above the sink that we're going to be doing our deoxidizing and degreasing in anyway. So just right there, up there in that cupboard door, up in that cupboard, sorry, behind that door. So you can see down there, there's vinegar on the left, bonami on that second shelf on the right, and then table salt just there in the middle. If for any reason vinegar and salt doesn't appeal to you, there is some ammonia. There's a bottle right there with that white rag covering it for some reason. And there it looks like there's a spray bottle and some whiting behind it for the cleaning in that manner, if that's how you're used to doing it. So I want a little bit of salt, a little bit of vinegar. Like I said, it'll smell kind of like potato chips, salt and vinegar chips. It'll make the copper turn kind of a pink color as opposed to orangish yellow or green or blue. You don't need to do both sides, but since I have it on my gloves already, let me go ahead and do the back side of the plate just to kind of get it also clean. You don't necessarily need to wear gloves while you're doing this, but your hands will smell like vinegar and salt potato chips all day if you don't. Rinse that vinegar and salt off. Some shops, they'll just use soy sauce. And we did that here for a little while, but unfortunately it makes the whole shop smell kind of like Panda Express a little bit to me. And I get really hungry all class. So I want a little bit of bonami. I maybe have a little too much on there. But you want to add it while it's wet, and that way you can kind of work it into a paste with the water. Go ahead and do both sides of the plate. Like I said, I don't necessarily need to worry about the back of the plate, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I found that it helps the contact paper stick a little bit better. I'm going to rinse that off. And then I'll repeat those steps. I'll go through them again. And I can just keep it wet. I don't need to dry it off between steps. So salt, vinegar, and I can just use the straight vinegar. It just seems to take a little bit longer. Like I said before, the salt just chemically accelerates what the vinegar is already doing. Rinse that off. Put a little bit of bonami on there. There we go. It is my good friend. You can also use Barkeeper's Friend. It is very similar. to the Bonami. Might be exactly the same chemical makeup, just a different brand name, but I know that it also works. All right, so you can see a really big difference between this undeoxidized plate and the plate that I just deoxidized. So this is a little bit pinker, that's a little bit more orange and yellow. To preserve that cleaning, I want to make sure I dry off the plate thoroughly, at least on the front. The backside I don't need to worry about just yet. At any point, if you're having a hard time seeing what's happening in your plate, you can always deoxidize and degrease it. And that tends to kind of return it almost to like a factory new type surface. All right, so that one's, if I leave the water on to dry off on its own, it will create an oxidation bloom, kind of like that blue-green purple thing that's happening right there. So like I said, just make sure you dry it off really quick. Sometimes I'll dry off the back just a little bit to make sure it's not drip water on the front. And voila. I'm going to go ahead and deoxidize and degrease this larger plate so you guys can see the steps again. Go through it again. So a little bit of salt, vinegar. You can see the reaction almost instantly. Look how pink that looks compared to how kind of orange and yellow the rest of it is. The main reason you want to get any grease and oxidation off of there is it can affect how well the hard ground will stick to it, and then later on how well ink will stick to it. Those elements, the oxidation and the, or any grease from handling it or from the factory or whatever, can also impact how ink sticks to the plate and how it prints. So this just kind of takes you back to ground, to level 0, so you don't have any of those issues while you're grounding your plate or printing. Oops, wrong step. Again, salt, vinegar, like I said last time, I just want to make sure I dry it really well. There's the second plate deoxidized and degreased. We can even take a plate like this that's been sitting in the shop for a couple years. See how blue and purple that is? Seems like that would cause issues. It doesn't. It'll still probably print okay. You might get some streaks created by where it's got oxidation where it doesn't have it or something like that, but after a couple of proofs it would probably print normal. But if I was reworking this plate, and this is a student's plate, not mine, but if I was going to rework, or the student was going to rework this plate, it would be really hard to see the image on there well enough to actually like scrape out, burnish out areas, or add more value, you know, with a roulette or with lines. So deoxidizing and degreasing can help with that. So a little bit of salt. A little bit of vinegar. Well, and just for comparison, see how shiny that plate is and how much easier it is to see the image on there. Probably even easier once it's not wet.